The Volkite culverin felt perfect in my hands. Too perfect. The ancient weapon hummed with a rightness that went beyond simple mechanical precision, beyond the crude pleasure of holding a superior instrument of death. This was something else entirely. Something wrong. But I did not care. Not then. Not in that moment when the ashes of the imperial world still drifted through the air like snow and the bodies of our enemies lay cooling in the ruins around us. I was Barris Helric, Tech Marine of the Iron Warriors' 4th Grand Company, and I had just claimed the finest prize of the entire campaign. The weapon dated back to the Horus Heresy itself, a relic from the days when such technology was common among the legions Astartes, before the Imperium forgot how to build such wonders. The heat exchanger plates along the barrel were still warm from recent use. Someone had been firing this weapon. Someone who was now dead by my hand. I could not remember his face, could not remember if he had spoken any last words. All I remembered was the moment my gauntleted fingers closed around the weapon's grip and that sensation of absolute rightness flooded through me. The battlefield stretched for kilometers in every direction. Ruined buildings jutted from the ground like broken teeth. The sky was thick with smoke from burning vehicles and the corpses of the defeated. We had hit this world hard, the way the Iron Warriors always did. No mercy, no quarter, just overwhelming firepower and calculated brutality. The defenders had been Imperial Guard, well-equipped and well-trained, but they had made the mistake of thinking their fortress walls would protect them. We had proven them wrong in the most final way possible. I had been part of the breaching team, using my Tech Marine skills to disable their void shields and open their gates. The fighting inside had been savage, close quarters work with bolters and chainswords. But somewhere in the chaos, I had encountered a warrior who was different from the others. His armor had been wrong somehow, too thick, too heavy, bulging in ways that standard power armor should not bulge. He had moved with a strange, ponderous quality, but his firepower had been devastating. The Volkite culverin in his hands had cut through our formation like a scythe through wheat. I had killed him. Put 3 bolt rounds through his helmet at close range. He had fallen like a collapsing building, massive and slow. And when I had approached to claim his weapon, I had noticed his gauntlets were not just holding the gun. They were fused to it. The metal of his armor had grown into the weapon's frame, creating a seamless bond that spoke of something deeply unnatural. I should have left it, should have recognized the warning signs. But the weapon called to me, not with words, but with that sense of rightness, of belonging, as though this gun had been waiting for me specifically. As though our meeting had been fated. Helric, the voice came from behind me. I turned to see Magos Vrane, one of the warsmith's chosen, his augmetic eye clusters focusing on me with mechanical precision. His robes were stained with blood and oil, and his mechadendrites clicked together in a pattern that might have been irritation, or might have been something else entirely. That weapon, where did you acquire it? From a dead man, I said, feeling the weight of the Volkite culverin in my hands. It was heavier than it should be, but the weight distributed perfectly across my arms, as though the gun knew exactly how to position itself for maximum comfort. He had no more use for it. Yes. Vrain moved closer, his robes rustling with the sound of hidden machinery. His multiple eyes studied the weapon with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. But where did he acquire it? That is the question you should be asking yourself. I looked down at the Volkite culverin. Now that the battle lust was fading, I could see details I had missed before. The weapon's casing bore no imperial markings, no unit designations, no purity seals or oath papers, just bare metal, ancient and powerful. And along the grip, so faint I had almost missed it, a series of scratches that might have been accidental. Or might have been something else, something like words in a language I did not know. High Gothic, perhaps, or one of the older tongues from before the Age of Strife. "The weapon is mine now," I said. "By right of conquest, the old laws of the Legion." Brain's mechanical eyes whirred as they adjusted their focus. The sound was like insects clicking their mandibles together. Of course. The warsmith would expect nothing less. We take what we can hold. We keep what we can defend. But be cautious, Helric. Sometimes our prizes carry costs we do not anticipate until it is far too late to refuse payment. He left me there among the ruins, his words hanging in the air like smoke. I should have listened, should have heeded the warning in his tone. But I was young then, young in the ways of chaos, if not in years. I had been with the Legion for 3 centuries, had fought in 100 battles, had proven my worth to the warsmith and to Perturabo himself. I had survived the Siege of Terra, had walked away from conflicts that had killed better warriors than me. I thought I was invincible, thought I understood the dangers of the warp and the dark powers we served. I was wrong. There are things that prove themselves to us rather than the other way around. Things that choose us rather than being chosen. I would learn this truth soon enough. The journey back to our battle barge took 3 days. 3 days during which I never let go of the Volkite culverin. I carried it with me to my quarters, held it while I ran diagnostics on my armor, kept it close while I attempted to rest. My brothers noticed. Of course they noticed. But among the Iron Warriors, obsession with weapons is not considered strange. It is expected. We are the sons of Perturabo, masters of siege and artillery, and our relationship with our instruments of war runs deeper than mere utility. We maintain our weapons with the same care other legions reserve for their battle brothers. We speak to them, we honor them, we treat them as extensions of ourselves. But this was different. I knew it was different. The weapon was not just a tool I maintained. It was something I needed. The distinction troubled me, but not enough to put the gun down. "You have found yourself a new lover, Helric," Brother Cordus asked me on the 2nd day, his voice carrying that dry mockery that passed for humor among our kind. Cordus was an old warrior, his armor covered in the scars of 1,000 battles. He had served with distinction on Istvan V, had helped destroy the Loyalist legions during the Drop Site massacre. His opinions carried weight in the company. "Should I be jealous?" "The weapon is a masterwork," I replied, running my fingers along the barrel for perhaps the 100th time. "Any tech marine would appreciate its construction. The heat exchangers alone are worth studying. This is technology from the Great Crusade, from before Mars fell to the Fabricator General's madness. We should preserve such knowledge." "Appreciate, yes. But sleep with it. That seems excessive even for you." I wanted to explain that I was not simply appreciating the weapon, that holding it felt like holding a part of myself that had been missing, that putting it down created a sensation like hunger, like thirst, like the need to breathe. But these were not things I could articulate, not without sounding weak. So I said nothing, and Cordus left me with a shrug, no doubt thinking I was simply being my usual obsessive self. On the 3rd day, I took the Volkite culverin to the firing range. The ship's armory master, a grizzled warrior named Fex, who had lost his lower jaw in the Siege of Talon, watched me set up with what might have been amusement in his remaining eye. The other eye was a bionic, a red lens that clicked and whirred as it focused on targets. His face was a ruin of scar tissue and metal plates, but he moved with the confidence of a warrior who had forgotten how to fear death. "Going to test your new toy?" His voice came from a Vox grill implanted in his throat, giving his words a metallic rasp that scraped against my ears. "Testing is the foundation of understanding," I said, repeating one of the old maxims from my training days. Back when I had been a neophyte on Olympia, learning the ways of the machine, back before the heresy had torn the galaxy apart. "Then understand this. Vex gestured to the targets at the far end of the range, servo skulls programmed to move in erratic patterns. Their eye sockets glowed with pale green light, and their movements were randomized by algorithms designed to simulate combat conditions. Those targets are moving at combat speed. The best accuracy rating in this company is 73% at that distance. Most warriors manage 50. If you can break 60, I will personally clean your armor for a week. I raised the Volkite culverin. The weapon's weight distributed perfectly across my arms. The grip seemed to mold itself to my gauntlets. The targeting reticule in my helmet display synchronized with the weapon's own machine spirit without any adjustment needed. I could feel the gun's presence in my mind now, a whisper of mechanical consciousness reaching out to interface with my neural implants. This should not have been possible. Volkite weapons did not have machine spirit sophisticated enough for such direct communion. But I did not question it. I simply squeezed the trigger. The Volkite beam lanced out, a thread of impossible heat that vaporized the first servo skull in a burst of superheated metal. I adjusted, fired again, another skull gone. The weapon sang in my hands, a perfect instrument performing a perfect symphony of destruction. I could feel each shot before I took it, could sense where the targets would be, could predict their movements with a clarity that went beyond simple calculation. It was as though the weapon and I were thinking with the same mind, processing tactical data through shared neural pathways. When the ammunition counter reached 0, Vex stood in silence for a long moment. Then his Vox grill crackled to life. 100% accuracy, every shot, every target. His tone was flat, carefully neutral. I've been running this range for 200 years, Helric. I've seen space marines from every company in the Fourth. I have seen Terminators with centuries of experience. I have seen Havocs who could put rounds through the eye sockets of running infantry at 1,000 meters. None of them have achieved perfect scores on that pattern. The algorithm is designed to be impossible to predict. The weapon is well calibrated, I said. Calibration does not account for prescient targeting. Vex moved closer, his remaining eye studying me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. How long have you been holding that weapon, Helric? 3 days. And before that? When did you first touch it? During the battle. On the surface. Vex nodded slowly as though confirming something he had suspected. Come with me. There is someone you need to see. The Warsmith's apothecary was named Halthor. He had been old when I joined the Legion, and 300 years had not improved him. His face was a map of scars and augmetics, his body a patchwork of replacements and reinforcements, his manner one of permanent irritation with the universe and everyone in it. He had served in the Fourth Legion since before the heresy, had tended to warriors on Olympia itself, had learned his craft under the original Legion apothecaries who had served directly under Perturabo's command. He knew more about space marine physiology than anyone else in the company. He knew more about the ways chaos could corrupt and change flesh. He knew things that would make normal humans scream. He examined me in his sanctum deep in the ship's medici deck, his servo arms prodding at my armor while I stood in the center of his workspace. The room smelled of chemicals and old blood. Specimen jars lined the walls, containing organs and body parts that I tried not to look at too closely. Some of them were still moving. "Strip," he said. I began removing my armor plates. The process took time. Power armor is not meant to be donned or removed quickly. Each piece must be disconnected, each seal broken, each system shut down in proper sequence. But as I worked, I noticed something strange. The Volkite culverin, which I had set down on a nearby table, seemed to pull at my attention. I found myself glancing at it repeatedly, found my hands moving more quickly through the removal process so I could pick it up again. The need to hold it was growing stronger with each passing second, building in my chest like pressure before an explosion. "How long since you last held the weapon?" Halthor asked. "Perhaps 5 minutes." "And how does that make you feel?" I wanted to lie, wanted to say I felt nothing, but Halthor had been an apothecary for 4 centuries, and he could spot deception in his patients the way a sniper spots movement in his crosshairs. "Uncomfortable," I admitted, "as though I need to hold it again. The longer I wait, the worse it gets." Halthor moved around me, his multiple eyes studying every inch of my exposed skin. His servo arms clicked and whirred, scanning me with auspex arrays and gene readers. "Any unusual dreams? Voices? Sensations of your flesh changing?" "Dreams, yes. Strange ones. I dream I'm melting into my armor, that my bones are becoming metal, that guns are growing inside my chest cavity. I can feel them there, waiting to be born, like children in a womb." "When did these dreams start?" "The night after I found the weapon." Halthor made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a growl. "Of course. It is always the weapons. The virus uses them as vectors, as lures. It finds those of us who love our instruments of war more than we love ourselves. Tell me, Helric, have you studied the history of the Obliterator virus?" The word hit me like a physical blow. Obliterator. I knew what that meant. Everyone in the Legion knew. The cursed warriors who had fused with their weapons, who had become walking arsenals, who had lost everything human in exchange for power. We used them when necessary, kept them locked away when we did not, treated them with a mixture of reverence and revulsion. They were weapons in the truest sense, tools to be deployed and then put away before they could spread their infection to the rest of us. "I cannot have the virus," I said. "I have been careful. I have followed all protocols. I wash my hands in sacred oils. I maintain proper distance from infected materials. I have done everything right." "Protocols." Halthor's laugh was definitely a laugh this time, bitter, cold. "The virus does not care about protocols. It spreads through touch, through fluids, through contact with infected materials. It is patient, subtle. It waits for the moment when you are distracted, when your guard is down, when you have just killed someone and claimed their weapon as a prize. Tell me about the warrior you killed to claim that Volkite culverin." I tried to remember. The details were hazy, obscured by the fog of combat and the passing days. He was different. His armor seemed wrong somehow, too thick, too heavy, and his gauntlets. I stopped, the memory crystallizing with horrible clarity. His gauntlets were fused to the weapon. Not attached, fused. The metal of his armor had grown into the weapon's frame. I thought it was just damage from combat. Battleware. I did not think. "And you touched those gauntlets when you took the weapon from him?" "Yes." "Did he bleed on you? Did any of his fluids make contact with your armor?" I thought back. Saw the moment of his death again, the way his helmet had exploded under my bolt rounds, the way his blood had sprayed across my chest plate. Yes, his blood. It got on my gauntlets, on my chest. I wiped it off later, but the virus had already entered your system. Halthor moved to a locked cabinet, his mechadendrites entering access codes that cycled through dozens of combinations. The cabinet opened with a hiss of escaping vapor. Inside were rows of vials, each one labeled with High Gothic script and sealed with wax bearing the warsmith's personal sigil. He selected one vial, held it up to the light. The liquid inside was dark, almost black, with flecks of what looked like metal suspended in it. "This is a sample of the Obliterator virus, the Iron Warrior's strain specifically. Perturabo himself provided the template, though whether he created it or simply modified what already existed is a matter of debate." Some say it came from collaboration with Mortarion, that the Death Guard shared their expertise with plagues in exchange for siege warfare techniques. Others claim it is a gift from the warp itself, from demons who see value in turning warriors into living weapons. The truth is probably more complex than either story. He set the vial down and fixed me with all 6 of his eyes. The virus consumes its host in 9 distinct stages. Each stage brings changes. Each change is irreversible. You are in stage 1, perhaps stage 2. Your accuracy has improved. Your connection to the weapon has deepened beyond normal human-machine interface. These are the first signs. If I am correct, you will soon find that weapons you hold for extended periods begin to adhere to your armor, then to your flesh. The virus transforms you into a living weapon. The process takes time, but the end result is always the same. How long? My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Years, typically, though the progression varies. Some warriors reach stage 9 in less than a decade. Others take longer. The Iron Warrior's strain is more stable than the wild virus found in the Eye of Terror. We have learned to control it, to weaponize it, to turn it into something useful rather than simply destructive. Our Obliterators are superior to those of other legions. They maintain more of their tactical awareness. They can follow orders, at least in the earlier stages. They are valuable assets rather than mindless beasts. Control, I repeated. You mean you deliberately infect warriors with this plague? Halthor's expression did not change. The Warsmith makes strategic decisions based on the needs of the Legion. Some warriors are selected for infection. They are given the option, told what they face, allowed to refuse if they choose. Others, like you, are simply unlucky, or perhaps lucky, depending on how you choose to view your fate. I looked at the Volkite culverin sitting on the table across the room. Even from here, I could feel its pull, its hunger, its promise. The weapon wanted me, wanted to be held, wanted to fuse with my flesh and make me something more than human, something perfect. Can it be stopped? No. Halthor's answer was flat, final, absolute. Once the virus enters your system, it begins its work. You can resist, slow the progression through force of will, but you cannot stop it. The virus is too sophisticated. It rewrites your genetic code at the cellular level. It modifies your organs to produce the materials it needs. It turns your body into a factory for making weapons. Eventually, the virus will consume you completely. You will become an Obliterator. The only question is how long you will remain yourself before the madness takes you. Madness? Stage 9 brings insanity, complete psychological collapse from the constant trauma of transformation, from the fusion of countless machine spirits into your consciousness, from the physical agony of weapons growing through your flesh. Some Obliterators retain fragments of their former selves. Most do not. They become things of pure violence, living weapons that exist only to kill. They lose language, lose memory, lose everything that made them individuals. What remains is hunger, the need to absorb more weapons, the need to kill, the need to serve the function they were designed to serve. I should have felt fear, should have felt horror, but standing there in Halthor's sanctum, stripped of my armor, marked with the invisible brand of a plague that would consume me, all I felt was a strange sense of calm. As though some part of me had known this would happen from the moment I picked up that Volkite culverin. As though this had always been my fate. As though the last 3 centuries had been leading to this moment. How do I proceed? I asked. Halthor smiled, an expression made grotesque by his scarred features. You document your transformation. The Warsmith values knowledge above all things. We are Iron Warriors. We build, we plan, we learn from every experience. Your experiences will help us understand the virus better, will help us refine the strain we use, will help future generations of Iron Warriors who face this same condition. You will keep a journal. You will record every change, every sensation, every stage of your metamorphosis. And when you can no longer write because your hands have become guns, I will continue the documentation myself. And then you become what you are meant to become. A weapon, a tool, a killing machine in service to the 4th Legion and to Perturabo himself. You will fight until you are destroyed. You will kill thousands. You will be feared by our enemies and respected by our brothers. Your name will be remembered, not as Barras Helric the Tech Marine, but as something else, something greater, something terrible. I returned to my quarters with the Volkite culverin in my hands and a data slate in my belt. Halthor had given me the slate, had instructed me to begin my journal immediately. Documentation was critical. Every detail mattered. Every sensation, every change, every moment of the transformation needed to be recorded. This was how the Iron Warriors worked. We learned from everything. We turned even our curses into advantages. I sat at my workstation, the weapon across my lap, and began to write. Day 1. I'm infected with the Obliterator virus. Stage 1, possibly Stage 2. The weapon I claimed as a prize has become my curse. Or perhaps my blessing, I'm not yet certain which. The changes are subtle so far. Increased accuracy, enhanced connection to the weapon's machine spirit, dreams of metal and flesh merging. Nothing that would alarm me if I did not know what was coming. But I do know, and that knowledge sits in my stomach like a stone. Halthor says the transformation will take years, says I will lose myself slowly, piece by piece, until nothing remains but the weapon. I should be terrified. Instead, I feel only curiosity. What will I become? What will it feel like when the final changes take hold? These questions consume me more than fear ever could. The dreams grew worse over the following weeks. Every night I would lie in my quarters, the Volkite culverin resting on my chest, and feel my mind slip into visions that were not quite dreams and not quite memory. I saw myself melting, my flesh turning liquid and flowing into the weapon's frame. I felt my bones restructuring, becoming hollow channels for ammunition. I heard voices, dozens of them, hundreds of them, machine spirits crying out in metallic chorus, each one demanding attention, each one trying to assert dominance over my thoughts. The voices were the worst part. They spoke in languages I should not have understood. Binary cant mixed with High Gothic, mixed with something older, something from before humanity had ever looked at the stars. They told me things, secret things, the proper ratios for plasma fuel, the optimal temperature for melter weapons, the exact angle needed to punch through ceramite with a lascanon. Knowledge flooded into my mind. Technical specifications I had never learned, weapon designs I had never studied. The virus was not just changing my body, it was changing my mind, making me into something that could understand weapons on a fundamental level, making me into something that could interface with any instrument of death. I woke from these dreams gasping, my body covered in sweat despite the cool air of my quarters. And each time, the first thing I did was reach for the Volkite culverin, needing its weight in my hands, like a man needs water after days in a desert. The weapon felt right, felt necessary, felt like the only real thing in a universe of lies. By the end of the first month, I noticed the weapon was harder to put down. Not physically. The weight had not changed. But each time I tried to set it aside, to place it in its storage rack, I felt a resistance, not from the weapon itself, but from my own hands. My fingers did not want to release their grip. The servos in my gauntlets seemed to lock in position, requiring conscious effort to override. Brother Cordus noticed. You are still carrying that weapon everywhere. Have you considered that might not be healthy? We were in the armory, maintaining our equipment after a training exercise. Around us, other iron warriors worked on their weapons and armor, the familiar sounds of tools on metal filling the space. The armory smelled of oil and ozone and old blood. It was a comforting smell, the smell of home. Healthy. I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. There is nothing healthy about what is happening to me. Then put the weapon down. Give it to the armory. Take a different gun. I tried. That very day, I attempted to leave the Volkite culverin in my quarters while I attended a tactical briefing. I made it perhaps 10 steps down the corridor before the need to return became overwhelming. Not a desire, a need. Like breathing, like the beating of my heart. My chest tightened, my vision narrowed. Sweat broke out across my skin. I turned around, went back, retrieved the weapon. The moment my hands closed around the grip, the panic subsided. The world made sense again. Cordus saw me returning and said nothing. His silence was more damning than any accusation could have been. Day 45. Stage 2 is confirmed. I cannot put down the Volkite culverin for more than a few minutes without experiencing severe psychological distress. The weapon has become part of me in ways that go beyond simple attachment. I can feel its machine spirit now, not as a separate entity, but as an extension of my own consciousness. When I hold it, I am complete. When I release it, I am diminished. Halthor says this is normal. Says every infected warrior experiences this bonding. The virus creates a connection between host and weapon that cannot be broken. We become dependent on them, addicted to them, need them the way we need air. This is how it begins. This is how the virus prepares you for what comes next. The first physical change manifested during a training exercise in the combat cathedral. I'd been firing the Volkite culverin at practice targets for perhaps 2 hours, the weapon growing hot in my hands despite its advanced cooling systems. The heat was pleasant, not painful. It felt like the gun was alive, its metabolism burning fuel, its heart beating in time with mine. When I finally set it down to reload, I noticed my right gauntlet would not release the grip. The ceramite of my armor had fused with the weapon's stock, metal flowing into metal, creating a seamless bond that had not been there when I picked up the gun. I stared at the fusion for a long moment, watching the way my armor and the weapon had become one thing rather than two. The join was perfect, smooth, as though they had always been meant to fit together this way. Then I tried to pull them apart. The attempt sent pain lancing through my arm, not from the armor, but from beneath it, from my flesh. The weapon had not merely fused with my gauntlet. It had fused with me, through the armor, through the ceramite and plasteel, down to the bone and muscle and nerve. Helric, the voice came from behind me. I turned to see Halthor standing in the entrance to the combat cathedral, his multiple eyes focused on my fused hand. So it begins. Can you separate them? Why would I? This is stage 3. The virus is taking hold. Fighting it will only cause pain. Accept the fusion. Let the weapon become part of you. That is the path now. That is the only path. I am becoming a monster. You are becoming a weapon. Halthor moved closer, his servo arms extending to examine the fusion point. They clicked and whirred, taking measurements, recording data. There is a difference. Monsters lack purpose. They kill randomly, without plan or reason. Weapons serve. They have function. They are tools in the hands of those who wield them. You will serve the Legion as you always have, but in a new form, a better form. What if I do not want this? Then you should have been more careful about what you picked up on that battlefield. Halthor's tone was not unkind, but it was absolutely merciless. The universe does not care about what we want. It cares about what we are. and you are becoming an obliterator. The sooner you accept that reality, the easier your transformation will be. Fighting only causes suffering. Acceptance brings peace. He left me there in the combat cathedral, alone with my fused hand and my growing horror. I tried to focus on the positive aspects. The weapon's accuracy had increased even further. I could now hit targets at distances that should have been impossible. Could compensate for wind, gravity, the movement of the ship, all without conscious calculation. The Volkite Culverin and I were one system now, functioning with a precision that would have amazed me before I understood the cost. But at night, in my quarters, I would lie awake and feel the weapon pulling at me. Not just at my hand anymore, at all of me. The virus was spreading through my body, carried by my blood, infiltrating every cell. I could sense it working, could feel changes happening deep within my flesh that I did not yet understand, but knew would eventually manifest in horrible ways. Day 90. Stage 3. The Volkite Culverin has fused with my right gauntlet and the hand beneath. I can no longer remove the weapon. It is part of me now in the most literal sense. When I try to sleep, I feel it pulling at me, demanding more. The virus wants to spread, wants to consume, wants to transform. I can feel its hunger like a living thing inside me, patient and inexorable. My dreams have become stranger, less about melting now and more about growth. I dream of weapons sprouting from my flesh like flowers, of ammunition forming in my bones like marrow, of becoming something vast and terrible and powerful beyond imagining. The strange thing is that these dreams do not frighten me anymore. They excite me, make me eager for what comes next. The ammunition was the next change. I noticed it during a combat deployment against an Imperial Guard regiment that had foolishly attempted to resist our arrival. They had fortified their position well, had dug in with artillery and armored support, had prepared for a long siege. We had given them 3 days of bombardment, then teleported assault teams directly into their command bunkers. I was part of the third wave, tasked with clearing the underground tunnels where the defenders had retreated. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters, limited visibility, enemies around every corner. I had been firing the Volkite Culverin for perhaps 30 minutes, burning through my ammunition reserves with the steady rhythm of an experienced warrior. The weapon's counter read empty. I had no more power cells, no more charges. I should have switched to my bolt pistol or drawn my combat knife. Instead, I felt something move inside me. It started in my chest cavity, a sensation like pressure building, like something growing where nothing should grow, then pain, sharp and sudden, as though my organs were being pushed aside to make room for something new. I looked down at my armor and saw new connections forming, cables extending from my breastplate into the Volkite Culverin, feeding power directly from my suit's reactor. But that was not all. I could feel the ammunition itself forming inside me, could sense the power cells being generated not in the weapon, but in my own body, my organs restructuring themselves to produce the energy the gun required. I fired. The Volkite beam lanced out exactly as before. Fired again and again. The ammunition counter remained at 0, but the weapon kept shooting, drawing power from me, using my body as its factory. I was no longer simply carrying the gun. I was feeding it, sustaining it, becoming it. The guard soldiers in front of me died screaming. I advanced through the tunnels, firing continuously, my body producing ammunition as fast as the weapon could expend it. I could taste it forming, metallic and sharp on the back of my tongue. Could feel it moving through channels in my body that did not exist before. The sensation was not painful. It was satisfying, complete, as though this was what my body had always been meant to do. When the battle ended, I stood among the corpses of our enemies and tried to understand what had happened, tried to reconcile the warrior I had been with the thing I was becoming. Failed completely. Day 120. Stage 3 continues. I can now generate ammunition for the Volkite culverin internally. The virus has restructured portions of my chest cavity to create power cells. I can taste them forming, metallic and sharp on the back of my tongue. Can feel them moving through channels in my body that did not exist before. The weapon is no longer something I carry. It is something I am. The distinction matters less with each passing day. Halthor examined me yesterday. He says the changes are proceeding normally. Says my organs have been partially replaced with biological factories capable of producing the materials weapons need. He took samples, drew blood that came out dark and thick, more like oil than human fluid. He seemed pleased with the results. Said I am an excellent subject for study. I do not know how to feel about that. My brothers had begun to avoid me. Not obviously, not with open disgust, but I could see it in the way they stood slightly farther away during briefings, in how they found excuses not to work closely with me on technical projects, in the way conversations would quiet when I entered a room. I did not blame them. The changes were visible now. My right arm had swollen, the armor plates bulging outward to accommodate new growth beneath. My chest piece had developed unusual protrusions, vents for heat dissipation, ports for ammunition transfer. I was becoming something other than a space marine, and my brothers recognized it. Only the warsmith seemed unconcerned. He summoned me to his sanctum 6 months after my infection began, and I stood before him with the Volkite culverin fused to my arm like a grotesque prosthetic. His sanctum was a vast chamber deep in the heart of the ship, its walls lined with weapons and trophies from 1,000 campaigns. Banners hung from the ceiling, the standards of defeated enemies. The air smelled of incense and old death. Halthor tells me your transformation proceeds well, he said, his voice carrying the distant quality of someone who had long ago stopped thinking of himself as human. The warsmith was ancient, had served with Perturabo himself during the Great Crusade. His body was more machine than flesh now, augmented and reinforced until almost nothing organic remained. You have documented each stage? Yes, warsmith, every change, every sensation. I record everything in my journal as instructed. Good. The knowledge you provide will be valuable. The Obliterator virus is one of our Legion's greatest assets, but we do not fully understand it. Your journal will help correct that deficiency. Future warriors who face this condition will benefit from your sacrifice. I am honored to serve. The words came automatically, drilled into me by centuries of service. You will serve differently now. The warsmith rose from his throne, his massive frame moving with the grinding sound of ancient mechanisms. He was enormous, easily twice my size, his armor incorporating weapons systems that would have required a dreadnought chassis for any other warrior. The obliterators we create are weapons, but they need handlers, guides, someone to point them at our enemies and ensure they fight effectively rather than simply rampaging. You will be assigned to Magus Vrun's cohort. He will ensure your transformation is managed properly, that you remain useful even as the madness approaches. Madness, Lord. You know what waits at stage 9. Halthor has told you. The final stage brings insanity, complete psychological collapse. We have learned to delay it, to extend the useful period, but we cannot prevent it. Eventually, you will lose yourself completely. The question is how much service you can provide before that happens. How many enemies you can kill. How much damage you can inflict in the name of the 4th Legion. I wanted to argue, wanted to insist that I would maintain control, that I was stronger than the virus, that I would never fall into madness. But the warsmith's gaze was like iron, cold and unyielding, and I knew argument would be pointless. He had seen this transformation 1,000 times, knew its course better than I could ever hope to. If he said madness was inevitable, then madness was inevitable. I understand, Lord. No, you do not. But you will." He dismissed me with a gesture, and I left his sanctum carrying both the Volkite culverin and the certainty of my eventual fate. Day 180. The Warsmith has assigned me to Magos Vrain's cohort. I am to be managed, contained, used while I remain useful, and discarded when I do not. This is what it means to serve the Legion. This is what I signed up for when I joined the Iron Warriors 3 centuries ago, though I did not know it then. We are all tools in Perturabo's hands. Some tools simply have more obvious purposes than others. I wonder if I will remember this when the end comes. If the thing I become will retain any memory of the man I was. Probably not. The virus is thorough. It does not leave fragments behind. Stage 4 hit me like a thunderbolt. I was in my quarters, attempting to remove my armor for maintenance, when I realized the task had become impossible. Not difficult. Impossible. My power armor had fused with my flesh at every contact point. The neural plugs in my spine had grown into the armor's systems. The ceramite plates covering my chest had bonded with my ribs. The helmet no longer came off because my skull had deformed to match its interior contours. I stood before the mirror in my quarters and slowly understood I would never remove this armor, would never see my face again, would never feel air on my skin. The armor and I were one thing now, fused together in a marriage that would last until my death. I traced my fingers across my chest plate, feeling for the join between flesh and ceramite. Could not find it. The transition was seamless. Perfect, as though my body had grown the armor naturally rather than having it fused on. I tapped my knuckles against my helmet. The sound was wrong. Too solid, too organic. The ceramite had become as much a part of me as my skull. But worse than the fusion itself was what I discovered when I tried to move. My joints no longer worked the way they should. My hips had dislocated and reformed, the ball and socket structure replaced by something that felt more like a universal joint. My shoulders had done the same. My elbows and knees bent in directions they should not bend, allowing greater flexibility but at the cost of looking increasingly inhuman. I walked across my quarters and heard metal grinding against metal, flesh creaking against ceramite. The sounds came from inside me, from the places where my body was rebuilding itself to accommodate its new purpose. I was no longer a man wearing armor. I was armor with flesh growing through it. I tried to flex my right hand, the one fused to the Volkite culverin. The motion sent strange signals through my nervous system. I could feel the weapon as clearly as I could feel my fingers, could sense its internal mechanisms, its ammunition feeds, its targeting systems. We were one organism now, one weapon, one killing machine. Day 210, Stage 4. My power armor has fused permanently with my flesh. I cannot remove it. Can barely remember what my face looks like beneath this helmet. My joints have reconstructed themselves, my bones and muscles adapting to support weapon systems I do not yet carry. I've become a hybrid thing, neither fully human nor fully machine. The virus is patient. It works slowly, carefully, ensuring each change is permanent before moving to the next. I'm being sculpted, refined, turned into something purpose-built for killing. When I look at myself now, I see a stranger. Someone I do not recognize. Something I do not recognize. But the strange thing is that I am starting to prefer this form to my old one. Starting to see the advantages, the efficiency, the purity of purpose. The self-repair systems appeared gradually, so gradually I almost did not notice them at first. A cut on my arm that should have taken days to heal closed in hours. A cracked armor plate that would normally require replacement simply fixed itself. Liquid metal seeping from my pores, filling gaps, reinforcing weak points, making my body stronger with each passing day. I tested it deliberately once, taking a combat knife and driving it into my thigh. The pain was immediate and intense, but so was the response. The wound did not bleed normal blood. Instead, a silvery fluid oozed from the cut, thick and metallic, and as I watched, the fluid hardened, sealing the injury with a patch of metal-flesh hybrid material stronger than what had been there before. I pulled the knife out. The patch remained. Studied it with my augmetic eye. The new material was denser than ceramite, harder than adamantium. I had injured myself and emerged more durable than before. The implications were staggering. If every injury made me stronger, then combat would not wear me down. It would build me up. Each battle would leave me more capable, more dangerous, more weapon-like. Magos Vrane found me in my quarters, staring at the silver patch on my thigh. He entered without knocking, his mechanical eyes immediately focusing on the injury. "Self-repair," he said, his mechanical voice carrying what might have been approval. "Stage 4 advances well. Soon you will be nearly indestructible." Nearly. There are always limits. "Sufficient force will destroy even an obliterator, a melter gun to the chest cavity, a power weapon through the skull, a plasma reactor detonating at close range. But you will be able to withstand damage that would kill a normal space marine 10 times over. Your body will adapt, repair, rebuild itself as needed. This is the virus's gift." Gift. The word tasted like ashes. This is a curse. Perspective. Vrane moved into my quarters uninvited, his robes whispering across the floor. "You see curse because you remember being human, but humans are weak, fragile, limited. They break easily. They die from injuries that should be trivial. You're becoming something more, something better, something that exists purely to wage war. Is that not what we all serve? Is that not the purpose of the Iron Warriors?" I wanted to argue. Wanted to insist that being a space marine was about more than just killing, about brotherhood, about honor, about serving a vision larger than ourselves. But looking at Vrane's mechanical form, at my own fused armor, at the Volkite culverin that was now as much a part of me as my arm, I could not find the words. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps this had always been our purpose, and the virus was simply making that purpose explicit. "The Warsmith wants you to train with the other obliterators." Vrane continued. "You will learn how to use your new abilities, how to spawn weapons properly, how to teleport without losing your way in the warp, how to maintain what little sanity remains as the virus progresses." There are others. Of course. We maintain a cult of obliterators within the Fourth. Not many, perhaps 24. They are kept separate from the general population, confined to specific decks, used only when the situation demands overwhelming firepower. You will join them, learn from them, become part of their brotherhood. Day 270. I can now repair myself. My body produces a metallic fluid that seals injuries and reinforces damaged areas. I am becoming more durable, more resilient, more difficult to kill. This should comfort me. Instead, it fills me with dread. I'm watching my humanity slip away, piece by piece, replaced by systems and structures designed for a single purpose. I'm becoming a weapon. The realization no longer surprises me. It simply is. Vrane has ordered me to meet with the other obliterators tomorrow. I do not know what to expect. Will they still be able to speak? Will they recognize me as a fellow warrior? Or will they see me as just another gun to add to their collections? I'm afraid. Not of them. Of what I will see when I look at them. Of what I will become. The Obliterator quarters were located in the deepest sections of the ship, in areas where normal crew members never ventured. The corridors leading to them were wider than standard passages, reinforced to accommodate massive bodies. The air was thick with the smell of gun oil and ozone. Warning signs covered the walls, cautioning against unauthorized entry, against physical contact with the inhabitants, against remaining in the area for extended periods. Vrain led me through the maze of corridors, his mechadendrites clicking against the walls. We passed several sealed doors, each one marked with high Gothic script identifying the occupant. Names I did not recognize. Warriors who had come before me. Warriors who had completed their transformations and now waited in their cells for the next deployment. We stopped before a door marked with my name. Barras Helric, Tech Marine. Stage 4. "This is yours now," Vrain said. "You will live here. Train here. Wait here between deployments. The cell is equipped with everything you need. Ammunition supplies, repair facilities. A pallet for rest, though you will need less sleep as the virus progresses." He opened the door. Inside was a space perhaps 10 meters square. The walls were reinforced ceramite, pockmarked with bullet holes and plasma burns. A heavy weapons rack dominated one wall, filled with guns of every type. Bolt weapons, plasma weapons, melter weapons, las weapons, all waiting to be absorbed, all waiting to become part of me. "The other Obliterators are training now," Vrain continued. "Come, meet your new brothers." He led me deeper into the complex, to a vast chamber that had been converted into a firing range. And there I saw them, the Obliterators. 5 of them, each one a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal, their bodies swollen to twice the size of normal space marines, their armor sprouting weapon barrels like some kind of obscene garden. The closest one turned to look at me. His face was barely visible beneath layers of metal and weapon ports. Where his eyes should have been were targeting lenses. Where his mouth should have been was a Vox grill. His arms had multiplied, 4 on each side, each one ending in a different weapon. Bolt pistols, plasma guns, flamers, a heavy bolter. "New arrival," he said, his voice a grinding rasp of mechanical syllables. "Stage 4, young, fresh, welcome, brother." I stared at him, trying to process what I was seeing. This thing had once been a space marine, had once been a warrior like me, and now he was this walking nightmare of guns and madness. "I'm Helric," I managed to say. "Names matter less now," the Obliterator replied. "I was Torvin, Havoc, 5th Company, long time ago now, just weapon. You will understand. Soon." The other Obliterators had stopped their training to observe me. They moved with surprising speed despite their bulk, their bodies flowing across the floor like liquid metal. One of them spawned a plasma cannon from his chest cavity, the weapon emerging from his flesh with a wet tearing sound that made my stomach clench. Another deployed missile pods from his shoulders, the launchers extending like insect wings. "They are showing off," Vrain said quietly, "demonstrating their capabilities. Establishing dominance hierarchy. Obliterators are still warriors, still Iron Warriors. They understand chain of command, even if they can no longer articulate it clearly. Will I become like them? Yes. Stage 5 brings weapon absorption on a massive scale. Stage 6 brings complete fusion. Stage 7 and 8 bring the ability to generate organic components. And Stage 9. He paused. Stage 9 brings the end of everything you are. What remains after that is pure weapon, pure violence. These warriors are at various stages. Torvin is Stage 8. The others range from 6 to 7. You will join them, learn from them, and eventually surpass them as your virus progresses. I watched the Obliterators train, watched them spawn weapons and fire at distant targets, watched them absorb new guns from the weapons racks and integrate them into their bodies. It was horrifying, fascinating, like watching my own future unfold before my eyes. Day 300. I've met the other Obliterators. They are monsters, beautiful, terrible monsters. I see my future in their grotesque forms, see what I will become, and the horrifying thing is that I am not repulsed. I am jealous, They can do things I cannot, generate weapons I can only dream about. Their bodies are perfect killing machines, optimized for maximum destruction. I want that, want to be that efficient, that powerful, that pure. The virus is not just changing my flesh, it is changing my mind, my values, my understanding of what is good and what is wrong. I can feel my humanity slipping away, replaced by something colder, something that does not care about the cost, something that only wants to kill. Other warriors began avoiding me completely now, not just keeping their distance, but actively leaving spaces when I entered. I could not blame them. My appearance had become grotesque. The right side of my body had swollen to accommodate the Volkite culverin and the ammunition production systems growing inside me. My left side had begun to bulge as well, though I did not yet know what weapons waited there. My movements had taken on a mechanical quality, joints grinding and clicking with every step. I looked like a walking corpse of metal and flesh, animated by forces better left unnamed. The warsmith ordered me confined to specific sections of the ship, not out of cruelty, but out of practicality. The Obliterator virus spread through contact, and while my strain was controlled, accidents could happen. The last thing the Legion needed was an outbreak among the Battle Brothers. So I was given quarters in the deeper sections, assigned work areas away from high traffic zones, kept separate from the general population. Isolation should have been torture. Instead, I found it peaceful. Fewer eyes watching my transformation. Fewer questions to answer. Fewer reminders of what I had been. I worked on technical projects assigned by Vrain, maintained my journal, and waited for the next stage to begin. It began 2 months later. I was cleaning my weapons, a routine task I still performed despite the Volkite culverin being permanently attached, when I noticed a bolt pistol I had picked up during a recent boarding action had become stuck to my left palm. Not fused, not yet. But adhering, the grip sinking slowly into my gauntlet, metal accepting metal, the weapon recognizing me as something it could bond with. I should have dropped it immediately, should have forced my fingers open and thrown the pistol across the room. Instead, I held it, felt it settling into my hand, felt new connections forming, new systems coming online. Within an hour, the bolt pistol had fully merged with my left arm, mirroring the Volkite culverin on my right, and I felt satisfied, not horrified, not disgusted, satisfied. Because now I was better armed, more dangerous, more effective. The virus had taught me to value functionality over form, to see weapons as improvements rather than mutations, to accept my transformation as progress rather than degradation. Day 320, Stage 5. I've absorbed a second weapon. The bolt pistol has fused with my left arm. I can feel it there, waiting, ready to deploy whenever I need it. But the truly disturbing thing is not the fusion itself. It is how right it feels, how natural. I'm losing the ability to see this transformation as wrong. The virus is not just changing my body, it is changing my mind, my priorities, my very understanding of what I am. The man I was would have been horrified. The thing I am becoming simply does not care. When I look at myself now, I see improvements, upgrades. Each new weapon makes me stronger. Each change makes me more effective. Is this madness, or is this clarity? I no longer know. The weapons came faster after that. A plasma pistol, a melter gun, a flamer. Each one I touched for more than a few minutes would begin adhering to my flesh, sinking into my body, becoming part of my growing arsenal. My arms sprouted additional grips and barrels. My shoulders developed mounting points for larger weapons. My chest opened up to reveal storage spaces for ammunition and power cells. I was becoming an armory, a walking weapons platform. My body had stopped being a body and started being a chassis, a framework on which the virus could build whatever it needed. The breaking point came during a combat operation against an Eldar raiding party. We had cornered them in a void station, and I was part of the boarding team sent to eliminate them. The fighting was close, brutal, the Eldar using their speed and precision to avoid our heavier weapons. They danced through our fire like ghosts, their forms flickering and fading, their weapons singing with alien energies. I saw one of them dancing through our fire, his form flowing like water, and something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped into place, into position, into purpose. I raised both arms without thinking, and weapons I did not remember absorbing deployed from my flesh. Bolt pistols, flamers, a plasma gun, all firing simultaneously, filling the corridor with overlapping fields of destruction. The Eldar died instantly, vaporized by the concentrated firepower. But I did not stop. Could not stop. My body was spawning weapons faster than I could track them, guns erupting from my arms, my chest, my back. I spun through the corridor like a mobile weapons platform, firing in all directions, painting the walls with the remains of anything that moved. More Eldar appeared. I killed them. Imperial Guard soldiers who had been fighting alongside us got caught in my fire. I killed them too. Did not distinguish between friend and enemy. Did not care. Only fired, only killed, only served the function the virus had designed me for. When the firing finally stopped, I stood alone in a corridor full of corpses. My brothers had pulled back, had watched my rampage from a safe distance. I looked down at myself and saw dozens of weapons protruding from my armor, barrels still smoking, breaches still cycling. I looked like something from a nightmare, a monster built from guns and hate. Brother Cordus approached carefully, his own weapon half raised. "Helric." "Still here," I managed to say. But even as I spoke, I felt the lie in the words. Helric was not still here. Not really. What remained was something else. Something the virus had built using Helric as raw material. Day 380. Stage 5 progresses. I can now absorb multiple weapons simultaneously. My body has become a platform for their integration, but I am losing control. During the last combat operation, I spawned weapons involuntarily, fired without conscious thought, killed without choosing to kill. The virus is taking over, using me as its instrument, and I am increasingly unable to resist. This is what Halthor warned me about. This is what the Warsmith predicted. The madness is beginning. Not the complete insanity of Stage 9, but something worse. A slow erosion of choice, a gradual replacement of will with programming. I'm becoming automated, a machine that looks like a man but thinks like a weapon. And the truly horrifying thing is that I'm starting to be okay with that. They can find me after that. Not to my quarters, but to a specialized containment cell deep in the ship's bowels. The walls were reinforced ceramite. The door was blast-proof. The cell had been designed specifically to hold obliterators, and I was its newest resident. The cell was larger than my previous quarters, but somehow felt smaller. The walls were covered in scorch marks and bullet holes from previous occupants. The air recyclers hummed constantly, filtering out the metallic tang that seemed to follow obliterators everywhere. A weapons rack dominated one wall, filled with guns I was expected to absorb. A reinforced pallet served as a bed, though I needed less sleep with each passing week. Magos Vrane visited me there. "Your transformation has accelerated," he observed, his mechanical eyes scanning my grotesquely modified form. "Stage 6 approaches?" 6. I had lost track of the stages, had stopped caring about the progression. What did it matter anymore? Complete fusion of flesh and machine. You will be able to absorb increasingly complex weapons. Your mass will increase significantly. Your cognitive functions will begin deteriorating as multiple machine spirits compete for dominance in your consciousness. So I am going insane. Insanity is a human concept. You are becoming post-human. The categories no longer apply. Vrain tilted his head, servos whirring. Do you still recognize yourself when you look in a mirror? I could not answer. I had not looked in a mirror in weeks. Months, maybe. Time had become strange, measured not in days, but in weapons absorbed, in stages completed, in pieces of humanity lost. The Warsmith has plans for you, Vrain continued. A major assault is coming. Imperial fortress world, heavy defenses. He wants obliterators on the front line. You will be among them. Will I survive it? Does it matter? You will serve. That is what you are now, what you are made to be. Survival is no longer a meaningful goal for you. Purpose is what matters. Function, killing, that is all you are, all you will ever be again. He left me in my cell, and I sat in the darkness trying to remember my name. Barras Helric, Tech Marine, Iron Warriors, 4th Grand Company. These facts should have defined me. Instead, they felt like memories of someone else. Someone who had died slowly over the course of months, replaced by this thing made of guns and madness. Day 410. Stage 6. My mass has doubled. My armor can barely contain the weapons growing inside me. I can feel them waiting, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Ready to kill. That is all I am now. A killing machine wrapped in the remnants of a space marine. The voices in my head have grown louder. Machine spirits arguing, fighting for control, each one demanding to be used. I can barely think through their noise. Can barely remember why I should try. They tell me things, show me targets, demand blood, and I give them what they want because resisting has become impossible. The man I was is drowning in a sea of mechanical consciousness. Soon he will be gone completely. The transformation into Stage 6 was not sudden. It was a slow drowning. Week by week, my body swelled with new weapons, new systems, new capabilities. My chest cavity became a reactor housing, generating power for plasma weapons and conversion beamers. My spine restructured itself into a series of deployment rails for missiles and grenades. My legs thickened to support the increased mass, becoming pillars of muscle-wrapped metal that could support tons of weight without strain. I could no longer walk properly. The weight was too much. Movement became ponderous, each step a calculated effort that required seconds of planning. But the virus compensated. I discovered I could teleport, the warp responding to my presence, allowing me to move through space in ways that defied physics. I would think about a location and simply be there, reality bending around me like water around a stone. This should have terrified me. The warp was dangerous, unpredictable. Warriors who teleported without proper coordinates and Geller field protection often arrived at their destinations changed, corrupted, worse than dead. But I found the ability useful, practical, another tool in my growing arsenal. The warp touched me when I teleported, its energies flowing through my body, but the virus protected me, used the demonic energies to fuel my transformations, turned chaos into structure. The voices grew worse. Every weapon I absorbed brought its own machine spirit, its own fragment of consciousness. They accumulated in my mind like layers of noise, each one speaking in different rhythms, different tones. Some were angry, hungry for blood. Others were cold, calculating, interested only in efficiency. A few seemed almost sorrowful, as though they mourned what I had become. The Volkite Culverin's spirit was loudest. It had been with me longest, had fused most completely with my consciousness. It spoke in binary cant, mixed with something older, showing me targeting solutions, optimal firing angles, weak points in enemy armor. But it also showed me memories. Not mine, the memories of its previous owners. warriors who had held this weapon, warriors who had died, warriors who had been consumed by the virus just as I was being consumed. I saw through their eyes, felt their final moments, understood what waited for me at the end of this road. Day 470. I can generate non-weapon components now, extra limbs, additional eyes, organs that serve no biological purpose but support my weapon systems. My body has become a factory for making instruments of death. The machine spirits are louder every day. Sometimes I cannot tell which thoughts are mine and which belong to the plasma cannon growing in my chest. Sometimes I forget to care. The virus has given me the ability to modify myself at will, to grow whatever I need to accomplish my mission. It is the ultimate expression of adaptability, the perfect weapon system, and I am its host, its vessel, its slave. I grew new arms, not 2 but 6, each one capable of wielding different weapons. They sprouted from my shoulders and back, pushing through my armor, extending like mechanical tentacles. The pain was excruciating at first, bones and muscles forming from nothing, nerves connecting to my spine, skin stretching to cover the new appendages. But the pain faded quickly, replaced by satisfaction. Now I could fire 8 weapons simultaneously. Now I was even more dangerous. I grew eyes across my body, allowing me to target enemies in all directions simultaneously. They appeared on my shoulders, my chest, my back, each one connected to a different targeting system, each one capable of tracking independent targets. My vision became fragmented, showing me multiple perspectives at once. It was disorienting at first, maddening, but I adapted, learned to process the information, learned to see like an obliterator rather than a human. My organs rearranged themselves based on tactical needs. My intestines became cooling systems for my plasma weapons. My liver processed promethium for my flamers. My kidneys filtered ammunition components from my blood, extracting the minerals and metals needed to create bolt shells and last charges. My secondary heart became a power generator, producing energy for my growing arsenal. I was no longer anything resembling human. I was barely even recognizable as having once been human. Looking down at my body, I saw metal and flesh woven together so completely that the distinction had become meaningless. Where did I end and the weapons begin? The question had no answer because there was no longer a meaningful difference. Halthor came to examine me one final time before the assault. He walked around my massive form, his servo arms prodding at various weapons and systems, his expression unreadable behind his scarred face. "Stage 8, he announced. "Flesh indistinguishable from metal. Complete mechanical biological fusion. You stand at the threshold of Stage 9. "How long?" My voice came from multiple Vox grills scattered across my body. I could no longer remember which one was my original mouth. Days, maybe weeks. The final transformation is close. When it comes, you will lose whatever remains of your identity. You will become pure weapon, pure violence. The man you were will be completely erased. Will I know? When it happens? No, that is the mercy of it. The final stage brings complete insanity, but in that insanity, there is no awareness of loss, no mourning for what you once were, only the eternal now of combat and killing. He packed up his instruments and turned to leave. At the door he paused. "For what it is worth, Helric, you served the Legion well. Your documentation has been invaluable. The knowledge you provided will help future generations of obliterators. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten." Sacrifice. I tested the word, found it hollow. This was not a sacrifice. It was an infection, an accident, a curse. Then what you make of it is up to you. You can see yourself as a victim, or you can see yourself as a weapon serving its purpose. Halthor left, and I was alone again with my voices and my guns and my fading sense of self. Day 503. I no longer know where I end and the weapons begin. My body is a mass of metal and flesh, impossible to distinguish one from the other. The voices are constant now, screaming, demanding. I can barely think through the noise, barely remember who I was. Barras. My name was Barras. Barras Helric, Tech Marine. Those words still mean something. But what? I cannot quite recall. The virus has almost won. Almost consumed everything I was. Soon there will be nothing left but the weapon. The eternal machine. The instrument of war that needs no name because names are for people, and I am no longer people. I am purpose. I am violence. I am what chaos makes of those who touch its gifts. This is my last entry as myself. Tomorrow the assault begins, and I do not think I will survive it. Not as Helric, not as anything human. What returns from that battle will be something else, something terrible, something pure. The assault came like a gift. They teleported me and 3 other Obliterators directly into the heart of an Imperial fortress world. We materialized in a command center, surrounded by shocked Imperial Guard officers, who had perhaps 3 seconds to understand what was happening before we opened fire. I do not remember choosing to fire. Do not remember targeting individual enemies. I simply became violence, every weapon on my body deploying simultaneously, filling the room with overlapping fields of destruction. Las beams, plasma bolts, melter fire, bolt shells, flamers, all firing at once, painting the walls with the remains of anyone who had been in the room. The fortress became a killing ground. I moved through its corridors like a walking apocalypse, spawning new weapons as fast as I could deploy them. A squad of space marines from the Imperial Fists chapter tried to stop me. I vaporized them with plasma fire. A sentinel walker opened up with its weapons. I absorbed the fire, let my metallic skin regenerate, and responded with a las cannon that cut the walker in half. I killed hundreds, thousands maybe. I lost count, lost track of time, lost track of everything except the firing, the killing, the endless dance of death. And through it all I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no horror, no emotion of any kind. I was simply doing what I was built to do, what the virus had designed me to do. I was a weapon. Weapons do not feel, they only kill. When the fortress fell, they teleported me back to the ship. I stood in my containment cell, covered in blood and ash, and tried to remember why I had cared about any of this. Tried to remember the name I had once carried. Tried to remember what it had felt like to be human. I failed. The memories were there, faint and distant, but they felt like stories about someone else. Someone who had died months ago. Someone who had been replaced by this thing made of guns and madness. Day. I do not know anymore. I've reached stage 9. I am an Obliterator. The transformation is complete. What remains of me? Fragments. Echoes. The ghost of a Tech Marine who once served the Iron Warriors with pride and skill. But the ghost is fading. Soon there will be nothing left but the weapon. The eternal machine, the instrument of war that needs no name because names are for people, and I am no longer people. I am purpose, I am violence, I am what chaos makes of those who touch its gifts. I write this final entry so someone, somewhere, might understand, might learn from my fate, might choose differently when offered the same terrible gift, but I suspect they will not. Because that is how the virus works. It chooses those who will not refuse, those who crave power enough to ignore the warnings, and I would not wish this on my worst enemy, though I suspect I already have.